Hi and welcome to Investing 4.0 Visionary Investing in Future Trends. First of all, Happy New Year to all of you. I hope that 2021 will actually treat all of you and all of us better than 2020 did and that things can go back to normal soon. Today we're going to talk about Bitcoin, and I do have a little experience with Bitcoin and bought Bitcoin when it was about $8,000 and sold all of it when it was about 11,500, which a minor profit. But I now know that it was a mistake, but hey, I won't complain. So at this time, I hold no Bitcoin at all. Now, as it is back up to about $40,000 value, I decided to take some time and investigate Bitcoin a little further. I'm simply wondering if investing in Bitcoin at this point makes sense or not. I'm no expert on this topic. I know that there's like so many YouTubers out there, so many channels out there solely talking about Bitcoin. And well, this is my try of getting into the topic and getting a good overview. So if you're not familiar with Bitcoin, if you're skeptical, or if you're not sure if you should actually invest into Bitcoin at this price point, this little mini series is for you. I will try to create a kind of different analysis about Bitcoin here on my channel, as I will stick to the research method that I apply to analyze stocks or other investments. So I'm really curious to see what the outcome will be. I won't claim that I know all about it, as there's massive information and opinions out there on Bitcoin, and it is really hard to put all of it into like a few videos here, but I will, as always, share my non-hyped fact-based research and opinion. I hope that we can have a good discussion in the comments down here and learn from each other on this hot and present topic. I decided to post 3 videos about Bitcoin now, in this little mini series with the familiar structure that you guys know by now. So this video will be about the history of Bitcoin and also a little bit about the business model, or in this case, the functionality. And we will also talk specifically about the Bitcoin bubble burst in 2017, so we can compare to today's situation. I also found a super interesting chart that might surprise you and that we will actually come back to in the next step of our research, so in the future videos. The second video will be about the advantages and disadvantages, or opportunities and risks of Bitcoin. And then the last video of this little mini series about Bitcoin will be about a summary about my personal opinion if buying Bitcoin in 2021 is actually a good investment. But now, without further ado, let's begin. All right, let's talk about the functionality first. If you want to get more information on how Bitcoin and the blockchain, which is like the kind of method behind Bitcoin, actually works, there are plenty of videos out there that can probably explain it way better than I can, so check them out. But to put it in simple terms, you probably know by now that Bitcoin is a virtual or digital currency, or to be specific, a cryptocurrency. The blockchain, which is the framework of Bitcoin and is somewhat of a diary, let's say, of transaction information, verifies these transactions by adding data to a continuous string of letters and numbers. I got a picture for you that visualizes that in a second. It works decentralized and doesn't need a middleman like a bank, and thus is peer-to-peer. The proof of the transaction is stored in more than one place, and the chain is immutable and cannot be changed or altered once it is created to make it more secure. Additionally, Bitcoin is anonymous, which is a big deal as well. To give you guys an impression, it does not look like the beautiful coin that we see in the news so often. It more looks something like this. What you see here is actually the first Bitcoin block that was ever generated, or mined, to use the correct term here. And it's called the block number 0 with a value of 50 Bitcoin. And 50 Bitcoin with today's value would add up to about $2 million. For the next videos, please do some homework, as I just mentioned, and watch a few videos on how Bitcoin and blockchain actually work. The idea of Bitcoin was introduced in a white paper by the mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto, and nobody knows who it is, if it's a single person or a group of people, and there are wild speculations about who the original founder was. To understand Bitcoin as an investment in a better way, I believe that looking at the history generates a lot of insights, especially as it's compared to gold quite a bit. Bitcoin is often referred to as the digital gold, And the basis for this actually lies in the algorithm of Bitcoin. And here are a few facts about Bitcoin in comparison to gold. And the first one is that it's limited. And Bitcoin is limited to 21 million, and gold obviously is also limited as it's a hard metal. And there is almost 200,000 tons of gold that has been mined throughout history, of which around 2/3 has been mined so far. More on the Bitcoin ratio in a second. Now, the second point is that the mining process requires more and more time and energy, and that's similar to Bitcoin. Bitcoin has fixed halving processes, and I'll explain it in a minute as well. And that is similar to gold here. Being a limited resource, less and less gold is being found on the earth. And the time, effort, and energy is increasing to find it, similar to Bitcoin here. And then the third point is that both are not issued by central banks or the federal government, but are somewhat independent. The fourth point is an additional point. It's more on the negative side here, unfortunately, and that is that, that both neither gold nor Bitcoin have a real value behind it. And yes, you can actually buy goods with them, like gold or Bitcoin, but they don't add value like any other investment. And sure, you can use it like gold in this case for like semiconductors, or you can actually melt gold and create beautiful jewelry. But in that case, it just looks nice and is nice to look at, but it doesn't really give you any value. So the value that it has is basically represented by the mining costs, and that's about it. Similar to art, the value of a painting basically is just the canvas and the paint on it, and maybe the hours the artist put into, but the value is created by what people see in it, and that's similar to Bitcoin and gold here. Now, when looking at the history, some of these points may become a bit clearer, so let's start with the history part here. Bitcoin was created in 2008 and made it into the public space for the first time in January in 2009 after the housing market crash. On May 1st, 2010, Laszlo Hanicic, I have no idea how to say the last name, but Laszlo agreed to pay 10,000 Bitcoins for 2 pizzas, and it was the most expensive pizza in history. At this time though, in 2010, 1 Bitcoin was worth about 1 US cent, so about $100 for 2 pizzas, which is quite a pricey pizza of course, but today's value would be 400 million US dollar, and that's what I call an expensive pizza. 2nd of July 2010, Mt. Gox, a Bitcoin exchange from Tokyo, was responsible for more than 70% of Bitcoin transactions at its peak. And by the way, Mt. Gox filed bankruptcy in 2014, as we will see in a second. February 3rd, 2011, Bitcoin takes parity with the US dollar, so $1 equals 1 Bitcoin. October 2011, the first alternative cryptocurrencies appear. According to Google, today there are more than 7,800 cryptocurrencies in existence, with Bitcoin still being the biggest one here. January 2012, some companies are beginning to apply and accept Bitcoin as a currency to pay for goods and services. November 2012, Bitcoin rewards for mining go from 50 to 25 Bitcoin per block, and that's the so-called halving event. There are 33 halvings within the Bitcoin algorithm in total, which means that the miners mining Bitcoin will get less reward and thus making Bitcoin more time and resource intensive for mining and thus more valuable. There are a limited amount of 21 million Bitcoin as mentioned to be mined, and currently about 2.4 million are left. February 2014. As mentioned, the world's largest Bitcoin exchange, Mt. Gox, went offline, and the owners of 850,000 Bitcoins never saw them again. December 2014, Microsoft begins accepting Bitcoin payments. May 2015, Ross Ulbricht, the founder of the Silk Road, which was a darknet website where you can actually buy illegal stuff like drugs and so on, was sentenced to life imprisonment, signaling to the world that Bitcoin cannot be used for criminal purposes with impunity. January 2016, the number of Bitcoin ATMs rises from around 500 at the beginning of the year to just under 900 by the end of the year, so almost doubled within 1 year. July 2016, Bitcoin's third out of 33 halvings took place, and Bitcoin rewards for mining go from 25 to 12.5 Bitcoin per block. September 2017, Japan's financial services agency, the FSA, officially recognized 11 companies as registered cryptocurrency exchange operators. December 2017, banks including Barclays, Citibank, Deutsche Bank, and BNP Paribas have said they are investigating ways they might be able to work with Bitcoin. September 2018, Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash BCH and BSV, which is the Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, use SHA-265, which means that the same mining hardware can be used to generate hash power on them. This is what led to the hash war between BSV and BCH, and the BSV Bitcoin Satoshi Vision emerged from the Bitcoin protocol with the aim to restore the original protocol rules and freezing them, as was intended in the Bitcoin inventor, or intended by the Bitcoin inventor Satoshi Nakamoto. August 2019, the National Tax Authority of New Zealand, the Inland Revenue Department, has published guidance for salaries and bonuses paid in crypto in August 2019. So getting ready for paying people in Bitcoin. Thanks, by the way, to the channel Data is Yummy, who created the animation that you just saw and allowed me to use it in my video. You can find a link to the channel in the description down below. And well, now Bitcoin is through the roof. Last year, Bitcoin increased from about $10,000 to now $40,000 per Bitcoin. If you look at the Bitcoin chart, we can see that Bitcoin had a similar rapid increase in 2017 and 2018 as we can see today, but back then it crashed massively right after. This increase in 2017 made a lot of people millionaires, and the sharp decline afterwards actually lost a lot of people a lot of money. Let's check what actually happened in 2017-2018 and why Bitcoin fell sharply. Maybe it helps us to assess the current situation a little better. So what happened back then? After sharp increases led by a massive hype driven by retail investors, which increased the Bitcoin price to about $20,000, the bubble burst with a big explosion. Here is a chronicle of the event. On December 17th, 2017, Bitcoin's price briefly reached its all-time high of almost $20,000. Then on December 22nd of 2017, Bitcoin fell below $11,000, and that is a fall of about 45% from its peak. Then on January 12th in 2018, amidst rumors that South Korea actually could be preparing to ban trading in cryptocurrency, and the price of Bitcoin depreciated by another 12%. On January 26, 2018, Coincheck, Japan's largest cryptocurrency OTC market, was hacked, and $530 million were stolen by the hacker, and the loss was the largest ever by an incident of theft, which caused Coincheck to indefinitely suspend trading. From the 26th of January to the 6th of February, the price of Bitcoin halved again and reached $6,000. Additional negative news for the cryptocurrency market continued for the first quarter of 2018. The price remained low, though the level slightly recovered in the first quarter of 2018. In March 2018, compromised Binance API keys were used to execute irregular trades, so there were some first irregularities in Bitcoin. Then in late March 2018, Facebook, Google, and Twitter banned advertisements for initial coin offerings and token sales. So to summarize it, what has happened here? Bitcoin was hyped by private investors back then. Some big players additionally fired up the price, and all you could read back then was hyped, super positive news on Bitcoin with a few exceptions. That's actually similar to what a lot of people see right now in the stock market. A lot of hype, especially with stocks like Tesla, which are going through the roof and 10xing or 100xing. And there's a lot of hype, and some people say that it's not really realistic anymore if you compare it to the market situation. But what has happened back then was pure market psychology and a big FOMO moment, which means basically there was a lot of fear of missing out. And the FOMO kicked in and more private investors jumped on the train. I remember back in 2017 personally that whenever I met with people, Bitcoin was some kind of topic in our rounds. And I wasn't big on Bitcoin and investments back then. Then, after some bad news, like the rumor that Korea was planning a ban on the cryptocurrencies as mentioned, and after the hack on CoinCheck, and more skepticism actually entered the market, Bitcoin crashed massively. Big players left the market and started some kind of a chain reaction like no other. From January to February 2018, the price of Bitcoin fell about 65%, and by January 2019, it lost about 80% of its value, making the decline of the cryptocurrency market in percentage terms larger than the bursting of the dot-com bubble in 2002. I found a really interesting chart that will help us in our historic analysis, in my opinion. So this chart shows the amount of tweets about Bitcoin, and we can clearly see the massive hype and also the sharp decline here. So now you might say this chart is just some kind of representation of Bitcoin and the Bitcoin price here, and yes, we do have a strong correlation. And what it tells us though is the hype driven by private investors, and it kind of eliminates the big players here, and that's going to be important for the next videos. The conversations the normal and I say private investors have on Bitcoin are tracked here, but not necessarily the value of the transaction. So let's say a big player wants to invest a really big sum of Bitcoin, then this would not necessarily be represented here, and there wouldn't be thousands of tweets here. So I really consider it as some kind of hype-o-meter of Bitcoin, and it really indicates the big hype around Bitcoin in 2017. So this was my little summary of the history of Bitcoin, including its biggest crash and the comparison to gold. I believe this lays a good and solid foundation for our next step in this analysis, which is the pros and cons and the opportunities and threats or risks. But before you leave now, I do have a little homework for you guys as announced. And the first one is that you need to get an understanding of Bitcoin and blockchain. So I don't care if you watch videos or read articles about it. I'm no expert on the topic, and as mentioned, there are plenty of YouTube videos about it that can explain it and express it and have beautiful visualizations and can do it way better than I can. And what's important is that you understand the functionality. And this will actually be important for our next step in the analysis. And the second homework is to show your love right now by liking this video and subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. I put a lot of time and energy and love actually into these videos, and would appreciate if you help me out to beat the YouTube algorithm. But that's it for now. See you next time. I'm out.